But so now it's being recorded on the cloud. And I'm suspicious that the only reason it's being recorded on the cloud is so if something bad happens, the district is saved from liability. I'm not sure that we have any ability to download or access that recording, but let me check this week and I'll get back to you. Because I was
Okay.
kind of wondering the same thing. Yeah, it's a very different arrangement than what I'm used to.
Okay.
So, yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Um, Chuck is here. Finally, you get someone who knows how to fix cars.
That's
Finally.
right.
Hi, Chuck.
So,
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
here's the problem. See, ASE, NIASE, the National Institute of Automotive Service Excellence, now they're doing renewals on your cell phone. Like every month, they're going to send you questions. Except the questions are like insanely hard, and they're not really well written. So I'm doing really badly on them. I'm like, geez, we got to get back in the test centers, fighting chance. But maybe it's just pre-rollout jitters. But so ASE certifications. Look, folks, it's all about certifications. I don't know if we've had this conversation before. I start getting class amnesia after talking about the same stuff so much, but the new look for the next decade, probably anytime in the near future, the university has lost so much credibility now that employers that know what they're doing are not looking for degrees anymore. They're looking for certifications. Yeah, they're not looking for see if you got some 4-year degree. I mean, it used to be back what they taught me, but certainly what in my father's day, 4-year degree showed that you knew how to speak English, read and write English well, and that you were good at math, and that you had a passing familiarity with science and a hope. No, not anymore. Not anymore. So as a result, university degrees have pretty much lost most of their credibility unless they're in science, technology, engineering, or math. But, and it's kind of a waste of money if it's not science, technology, engineering, or math. 50% of students graduates with a law degree aren't practicing law. Okay, well, so what'd you do for 3 years? And, God help you if you spent 60 grand a year.
Right.
So, so, I mean, it's really disrupted the whole society because now you've got all these people walking around with tremendous amounts of debt that they would have used to buy a house. I mean, there's, 180 grand worth of student loan debt, and you got it in, gender studies, whereas cultural studies. I mean, what are you going to do with that? So my point was that now everybody's looking for certifications. In fact, Google doesn't want to hire you if you've got a bachelor's degree. Google wants to hire you if you can code. They want to hire people that can actually do stuff as opposed to people that, just went to kegger parties for 4 years. Like me. No, actually, it's 13 years for me. And I wanted to say something because, it became an issue this week. One of the best things about being in the shop for us is that if you have a significant problem with your car, which is to say not just an oil change or a brake change, if you have a significant problem with your car, if you can bring it into the shop, we can do the diagnosis and we can get used parts for you, and chances are good, well, at least most of the time, we can do the repair. Now, if you take it into a professional shop, they're going to charge you, what, $120 just for the diagnosis? That's before getting the wrenches out. And then if they get parts, they ain't going to get no used parts. They're going to get new parts. And it might be difficult to get a new part that's 15 years old, to say nothing of 20 years old. Whereas it's relatively easy to get these things on eBay. Or if we were to get, parts on eBay, it's way cheaper than, them going to the dealer, which they would, because after all, they have to warranty it. I'm not saying they're trying to rip you off, because they're not. It's just they have to warranty this stuff. So the only way they're going to know what the quality is by going to dealership parts. And then they're going to, install it at shop rate, which now is like 120, 150 an hour. So as a result, stuff that will cost you $1,000 to get done in a professional shop will get done by us often for 100 price of parts. So this is stripping us of one of our biggest advantages to this class, which is to say our ability to really make a whole bunch of mid-range repairs from like 200 to 800. That was our specialty. And we could pretty much always do that for the price of parts. If you got in early enough, we can almost always do that for the price of, and used parts, right? Because if you have a 95 Sentra, why would you put a new intake manifold on that?
Yeah.
That would be dumb. And what made me the Corvette master, what made me capable of having all these Corvettes at the same time is the fact that there's such a huge market for used parts. Because like I found out I needed a throttle body for my 298 Corvette, my convertible. Found out I needed a throttle body. You know how much a new throttle body is for that? It's got the idle speed control motor and the throttle position sensor. That's probably $1,000. But on eBay, there's places that have a stack of them for 180.
That's right.
And I can teach a 16-year-old how to change out throttle bodies. That's not particularly hard job.
Yeah, I have a question quick.
Yeah.
I have also a Honda Element and my AC condenser broke over there. How hard is to replace this one?
Compressor?
Yeah, the compressor, yeah.
Yeah, that's big. That's big and that's bad.
But
the problem is when those compressors break, they throw a whole bunch of metal chips throughout your whole system.
Yeah, and also I looked at the price of the compressor is like between $500 to $700, just the part itself.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Are you looking at Rock Auto on that though?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Also, you're gonna want to get a new receiver dryer too, because what happens when all those metal chips go through the system, they all get stuck in the screen of the receiver dryer. So it's considered standard practice to replace your receiver dryer at the same time. Then it has to be evacuated, and well, shoot.
That's a lot of work, huh?
Yeah, it's actually a lot of work, and we don't have the equipment yet because that's what I was going to be buying this year when I found out that the Suburban took 12 pounds of refrigerant. That was a joke, Chuck, but I figured it'd give you a laugh because it's got dual zone climate control. So I went down to Quality Auto Service in Pomona, my go-to guys, because they're a couple of blocks from my house. And I said, how much would it cost to recharge the air conditioning in my 99 Suburban? And he said, oh, that's the one with the dual zone climate control? I said, yeah. He said, it's like $600.
Oh my gosh.
On a $1,200 car, vehicle. Yeah. So as a result, we rolled down the window.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, that's an expense. Wow. I wonder why it blew up. That's really disappointing.
Yeah, the car is 07, so it might be like a little bit getting too old,
Yeah, but how many miles it got?
Close to 200.
Oh, that'll do it, especially if you drive it where it's hot. But okay, now here's the thing. Here's what you guys need to understand, because that might help. You can get people to do the work with parts you supply. I'm sorry, you can get shops to do the work with parts that you supply, but there ain't no way they're going to warranty that work. Which, okay, so I'm down at Connie and Dick's, and they wanted to replace the drive belt and the tensioner on the Z06. They wanted like $400 for that. Why? Because they're getting the tensioner from General Motors, and they're getting the belt from General Motors. So the belt was like $80. The tensioner was like $200, $280, something like that. Because they only get stuff for GMs through General Motors, because these guys are working on cars all the time, and it's like the failure rate of non-GM stuff is, I'm sorry, it's just going to be way higher. So I just said, please show me some mercy. Let me go get my price for, the tensioner and the belt, which, cost me what, 80 plus 30 is 120 probably, and they were kind of pissed about that because that's, you know, that's $280 that doesn't go in their pocket. And of course, they didn't warranty the work. Fortunately, they're a righteous place, and they're not going to do the job wrong just because they're angry about you not buying their parts.
Yeah.
We should talk about that. We should talk about the price structure of professional auto repair. But I mean, I was at $700 because some jackass. I don't know if I told you guys this, but the Z06 died on the corner of Town and Arrow. And I took it in, and it was like $700 to get it fixed because some jackass left the nut on the back of the starter loose, and the wire that goes from the fuse box to the whole rest of the car goes through that starter nut, and someone left it loose, high resistance, melted it. It was a nightmare, but that was $700. And guess what? The car ran exactly the same as it did the day before. I was pissed off, man. So anyways, we should talk about the price structure of professional auto repair. So let's go ahead and do that. I don't think that's a digression at all.
You know, would you say it's worth fixing this car if it's like element 07, like I'm paying all this money? I don't know if it's worth it, you know.
I question very vigorously the virtue of doing any major repairs on any vehicle that's over 200,000 miles.
Yeah.
I question it because it's true.
188, yeah, it's getting close to 200.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Hondas will last a long time, no doubt about that. Is this manual trans or automatic?
Automatic.
Well, and it's on the original transmission.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably time to go. Yeah, bye-bye.
Problem is, automatic transmissions tend to get sketchy between about 180 and 220. I've never heard of one lasting longer than 250. Now, the engines will last, but I don't know. You know, if that correct, I don't know. You know who knows? Let's ask Chuck Reyna. Chuck Reyna, what do you think?
Well, the thing about, to me, this is only opinion. I drive mostly stick, so when you get them rebuilt, my brother-in-law has met plenty of horror stories when you get rebuilt, and them trannies are just never the same, even after a rebuild, you know? So it's kind of a, if you really love the car. You know
No,
what I
I
mean?
don't care about it at all. Why would I care about the Honda Element 07? It's really nice because you can take the back seats out and it's like a big box inside, so I throw things there. So that's what's nice about, but otherwise.
Call
Right
it
into the
30.
ground.
What? What say what?
I'd say right into the ground and have a couple of thousand ready to get another car.
I mean, you can always donate it to a charity and take it as a tax deduction. I don't know how much you need a tax deduction.
Also, I can, yes, but it's really small. It's no money as far as that. It's like a few $1,000 as tax deduction. Yeah, it's not going to change.
That's a lot of money to poor public servants such as myself.
Yeah, but you know, there's a different program. It's called Change My Ride in California. So if you bring like an old car that like smoke, like I think it's called older than 2007, so they give you like a rebate buying a new, either like a hybrid or electric car.
CAS.
It's a bad deal.
So,
Yeah.
so all the poor people in California get to buy you a new car?
Basically, that's what's interesting. Yeah, that's right. That's how it works. But basically, for like you get between $9,000 to like $10,000.
What?
Like as a voucher for a new car. Yeah, and I know people that did that.
Really?
Yeah, it's called the Replace My Ride. You can Google it. Yeah, it's California program. Yes.
Wow.
Many people just getting cars that worth like $12,000. They have to add like $2,000 or $3,000, and they have like basically a much better car. When they had like an old car that cost like $1,000, and they just exchange it for the voucher.
Yeah, and they wouldn't check to see that your air conditioning didn't work.
Probably, definitely not.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about scams, I might as well show you how to be good at it, right? That was a joke.
Well, it's not a scam, yeah. But, yeah.
Well, it kind of is because every poor
It's all allowed to do. It's all allowed.
I mean,
As long as it's allowed, it's
illegal.
Yeah,
I'm
so-
not saying it's illegal,
Yeah.
but every poor working person in the whole state is subsidizing rich people buying expensive Teslas.
This is true. This is exactly true. This is how you get those money, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But this is how the system works. Yeah.
Yeah, so my point was there is a program in California that if your car won't pass smog and it's going to cost over $750 to repair it to get it to pass smog, the state of California will buy it back and they'll give you, I think, $1,500 if you're poor or $1,000 if you're not. But that's called the smog buyback program.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, and there's the replace my ride where when they actually will give you like a rebate on a new car that worth like cash, you know, when you buy a new car. Not a new car, you can buy like a used car, but with a certified dealer. Or actually, you can buy also a Tesla like that and get like
yeah. I wonder who
$9,000
the
off.
certified dealers contribute to on election day.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm furious. Anyway, the point I was trying to make was, yeah, just decimating the working class in California. You know, Yelp did a study. 60% of the small businesses that have closed are never ever going to reopen.
I know, that's so sad.
Done.
So sad.
Yeah, it's outrageous. So my point was that you can donate it to a charity, and they're going to give you, you know, depending on how useful tax deduction is to you. That's usually the way I go with stuff.
It would be very useful, but for $3,000 or $4,000, it's not really useful.
Right.
It's not gonna put me in any other bracket if this was important.
Right. Okay. All right, that makes sense. Okay, so let's see. Let's look at something just for a moment. Just as a classroom exercise. Come on. How does it know what I want already?
Yeah, I know. Crazy.
The algorithm.
Yep.
Yeah, because I left the microphone plugged in. 2007 Element. $200. Now, as you can see, this one is cheaper. That comes with lubricating oil. This comes with, oh, so does this. This comes with a bunch more stuff. Refurbished. Yeah, this one's brand new. This one's refurbished. I don't know.
$3.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Sponsored. They have 6,000 auto parts. I mean, sorry, they have 6,000 transactions. I would not trust a place like that. But how come these are all sponsored? Golly. Refurbished. Okay. I'm assuming these are all. Yeah. Well, see, the problem is if you go to a mechanic, they're going to get this from the Honda dealer, or they're going to get it off of someplace that has to back up the warranty on this. And that's going to bring your prices up like crazy. See, if you buy 3, you'll be a lot better off. All right, so they got 46,000 transactions. Something tells me they're probably doing okay, and they got a 99% rating. I've had real good luck with eBay sellers, except for the stupid radiator on my YouTube channel, but that was kind of my fault anyway. Anyway, so you need to get the AC compressor, and then you would have to get the receiver dryer. So you're probably talking about $400 just in parts, not counting the refrigerant. We can't do that job yet this year. So as a result, it would be brutal. I would think, you know, $1,500 probably. And would I put $1,500 in a car with 180,000 miles on it? Not really. Now, Chuck brought up something important that I wanted to talk to you about. The people around here, well, there is one place that does Honda transmissions in Rancho or something. They know what they're doing. But most of the transmission places around here, they don't know what they're doing. And they cannot rebuild these transmissions with any degree of success. Especially the CVTs, folks. Do not get a Nissan with a continuously variable transmission.
Yeah.
It's so bad. It's so bad. I mean, and you know, after 80,000 miles, it takes a dump, and that's like $4,000 to fix. And once it gets fixed, it ain't gonna be right.
I see. Yeah. I see. If I will fix it, invest in my Element $1,500, I'm not gonna get the return on my investment.
Exactly so, right?
That's what's important. Yeah.
It's like putting new tires on a car before you sell it. It doesn't make any
Yes,
sense.
definitely.
Doesn't make financial sense.
Yeah.
Phone keeps hitting me up. Okay, so
Better give them a little bit discount, but don't put a new tires, obviously.
okay, yeah. So let's talk about your options when it comes to things like automatic transmissions. Now, like I said, there is a Honda place that does transmissions in Rancho Cucamonga. I forget their name, Honda Trans or something like that. They know what they're doing, but that's because all they do is Honda transmissions.
Yeah, that's perfect. I live in Rancho, so it's like I'm
Yeah.
here.
But that's for transmissions. That's all they do. So there is the used option, and the used option on a lot of this stuff, the used option's a lot better. Because let me ask you a question. Which do you think is going to be more reliable? Just rebuilt transmission that was rebuilt by some dudes probably making 15 bucks an hour using God knows what parts, using God knows what tools in God knows what kind of building environment, and God knows how it's been tested or if it's been tested. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have a used Toyota transmission that was built by a Toyota technician in a Toyota factory with Toyota parts to Toyota standards using Toyota tools?
That one.
Yeah. So what they do is, this used to be big. Kei Watanabe used to be big on this Japanese motors and Japanese transmissions. And what they do is the smog rules in Japan were so hardcore that after like 40,000 miles, it made better financial sense to just get rid of your car. So that left a whole bunch of engines with 40,000 miles on it. Well, a Honda or a Toyota engine with 40,000 miles on it is like barely through the first oil filter.
That's still good.
Yeah. And, same thing with the transmissions. So usually what happened, so what they did was they packed up all these engines and transmissions and they brought them over here. Well, that made it very, very cheap and very, very practical to install used transmissions instead of rebuilt ones. And I still think in a lot of ways you're better off. Problem is now most of the people that are selling used stuff are also doing rebuilding. So you're like looking at this thing and saying, well, you guys didn't touch it, did you? Right? It's like, I don't want it rebuilt, I want it used. So Chuck, are you using any used stuff?
I haven't used any of those in many years. We used to have one in Southgate called STC.
Yeah.
And, at the time, I had a Datsun B210. I run from a 13cc to a 14cc engine for $175 right from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, we're talking in the mid 80s.
Right.
That motor lasts a long time.
Yeah.
Put new seals on it, new gaskets, and pop it in.
Because I got to tell you, you never know with these other rebuilders. You have no idea what they've done. I mean, I got an engine from one of the rebuilders down here on Holt, close to Mountain, if you know what I mean. Anyways, it blew up after like 300 miles. So I actually went in and I checked it out, and the cylinder walls were about that thick. I actually measured it, and I was like, dude, you can't bore out an engine this far. They're all like, blue, blah, bleep, blah. I'm like, well, okay, so it doesn't matter what warranty you get if they don't honor it. So it turned out to be a terrible, terrible experience for me. You never know what these rebuilders are going to do. They're probably going to use the cheapest pistons they can, or they're just going to use oversized rings, or who knows. That's why I would rather have a used than a rebuilt, to tell you the truth. Now there's a couple of places that sell Japanese engines around here, used engines, used transmissions. I think that's a better bet in terms of automatic transmissions, especially because nobody around here knows how to use them, but these CVTs are just driving people up the wall. That's why, I like the Nissan engines, but the transmissions are just awful. They're good while they work, but the moment they don't, you're going to wish you had sold the car about 3 weeks ago. So that's the thing about used engines, used transmissions. let's talk about the price structure in automotive repair, because that's going to be a big thing for you. Okay, here's what you got. We got parts, we got labor, we got disposal fee, which in the case of certain toxic things, like for instance, if you technically if you get oil in coolant, that's considered hazardous waste. They have to have a hazardous endorsement to even take it from you. That's why a lot of times when you try to dump coolant, they're going to dip it and see if they can find oil. Technically, you can't even have that in your car. So here's the thing about parts, labor, disposal fee. That's pretty much it. Now, what's recently happened in this industry, because it had to, because the mechanics just revolted, is now part of our labor is a diagnostic fee. Now, the better shops are going to spend more time and effort doing diagnostics because two reasons. Number one, they want to make sure that they get your problem appropriately diagnosed, because after all, they're charging a lot and they want to make sure that they do it right the first time. That's one reason. And you know, cars are very complicated now. It's hard to be the old school, well, I'd say it's impossible to be the old school mechanic and just look at something and say, oh yeah, it's that, unless it's like dangling from the bottom of the car. Then we still have to figure out why. But my point was, not only are they going to do the diagnostics before the repair, but they're definitely going to do the diagnostics after the repair. And after all, you know, that test drive to run the monitors on most of these cars could take close to an hour. Someone's got to pay. Someone's got to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're charging for the diagnostic fee, and part of that is going to be the test drive. Now, they're going to figure out a way to get it done in less than an hour, hopefully, but that's part of the skill, right? The diagnostic fee, they're going to run diagnostics after the repair. Why? Because they don't want you coming back in 2 days saying, well, now it shifts funny and it didn't before you fixed it.
Right.
Right? So they're going to take it out, they're going to take it out there with a scan tool, and they're going to make sure that it runs primo. And if it doesn't run primo, they'll just say, hey, guess what? You need more repairs. Do you approve or disapprove? But, you know, this stuff comes back. I mean, it's complicated vehicles, right? Stuff comes back a lot, and these shops need to protect themselves against people that are just scammers. You know, people that have a bad transmission and then they break one spark plug wire. This happens a lot. People have a bad transmission, right? It's slipping when it gets hot. So they break one spark plug wire and take it down to Joe Schmo at the corner of the garage, and he replaces the spark plug wires, and he says, man, you must be so happy I expertly diagnosed this problem and I fixed it for you for less than $100. Well, then the person says, well, yeah, but it slips when it's hot. It didn't do that before I brought it. Well, how's this guy going to protect himself? You know, people that make phone calls, they'll call a Better Business Bureau, right? Here's your Yelp review.
Right.
So the better shops are going to spend, probably charge you an hour on diagnostics. And, you know, what's shop rate now? 100?
A lot.
Pretty average. Yeah. I mean, it's probably 150, 200 at the dealership, but yeah. So we finally got a diagnostic fee, which is important because that gave us time to use the diagnostic tools we need to find these problems. And as you can see, I'll show you, hopefully next week, I'll show you the document that I got from Connie and Dick's about the repair they did on my car was like 16 pages. And it had pictures and it had videos, and it was awesome. There was no doubt whatsoever what my problem was and that it was fixed after they had fixed it.
Cool.
No doubt. No doubt. It was bitching. It's a program called Shopware. it's just bitching. I've never seen anything like it. But you know, Connie and Dick's is on the leading edge of everything. Scott Brown at Connie and Dick's is probably the top diagnostic technician in the country, or at least in the top 10 at least. And he is also a Montclair High School graduate, incidentally. I'm not, but he was. So, and he still knows how to fix cars. He still knows how to fix cars. So the point I was trying to make was, yeah, it's really, really amazing shopware, incredible program. And what it does is, it's trying to get the automotive industry in line with the rest of these industries where you expect a higher level of service and information. Because, you know, I don't know, I pay for blood tests all the time, and you know what I never get? The results.
Really?
Why am I not getting the results? I'm paying all this money.
Yeah, you gotta ask for them.
Right. And, you know, and if I was to get the results and it said I was low on vitamin D, you know, I'd just go to Target and buy some pills. But if you don't tell me that, I'm probably going to feel like crap all the time and not know why.
Yeah, and a lot of times they won't tell you unless you ask.
Right. So, I mean, there's simple things we can do to improve our health that a blood test will show, but it's like, that's all secret stuff that, oh, I'm not going to show you what this says.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why they sell the new Apple Watch. It has all that.
Yeah. For instance, I mean, yeah, we've seen this huge revolution in, you know, it can tell you if you're having a stroke. You know, it can tell you, and you put your fingers on it, and it can tell you if you got bradycardia or something.
Mhm.
That's crazy. But, you know, it's like that's the age we're moving towards, or at least that's the age we should be moving towards. Some of us are moving towards it because more information is better. More information is better. So, anyways, that's a big document, shopware, Connie and Dick's. If you have a hard problem nobody else can fix, I guarantee you Connie and Dick's can. But let me talk to you about parts and labor. The California Automotive Repair Act, long time ago, people were complaining that they were bringing their cars into these shops, and they said, you know, tell you what, back in the days when you used to change plugs every 30,000 miles, they'd bring their car into a shop, and they'd say, hey, can you change the plugs on this car? The guy'd say, yeah, sure. People would come back at the end of the day, and the guy would say, okay, good, it's $500. They'd be like, how is changing the plugs $500? And the guy would say, well, the shop would say, well, look, the plugs were $100 and it was $500 worth of labor. And so people didn't like that. So what happened was the California Automotive Repair Act instituted what we call flat rate. And flat rate means that mechanics don't get paid like that anymore. They don't get paid on how long something takes to do. They get paid on what's called flat rate, which means that they put 10 mechanics in a room, and then they have a certain job, like replace the CV boot on a 2014 Camry. So they have 10 mechanics do the job, and then they average the amount of time that it took the mechanics, and that's called flat rate, measured in tenths of an hour. And then they say that's how long it should take. Now, if it takes you 3 hours to do that job, you lose. I mean, if it takes you a lot longer, if it takes you twice as long as these mechanics to do a job, you lose. But if you can do a job in a quarter of the time, that's how mechanics make money. That's how you can get these crazy days where you make $3,000 in a day. What was? Doggone it! Now I've forgotten. But you know, Professor Rubio was the top Toyota technician in the whole country, and you know, the guy over at Citrus College, head of the heavy equipment program. He made something ridiculous, like $60,000 in like 3 weeks. He said that was the week I bought my house, right? Because that looks good. But yeah, if I forget the story, I'm gonna have to ask him again because this is a great story. Anyways, now you ask yourself, is that fair? Well, yeah, it's probably fair because there's a whole bunch of times you're gonna break a bolt, and then all of a sudden your 45-minute repair turns into a 5-hour debacle. So it evens out. I mean, at least that's the theory. So now we have what's called flat rate, which means you don't get paid for how long it takes you anymore. Because what if you suck? I mean, it could take you all afternoon or longer. So the mechanic got flat rate, but that's only under certain conditions that have to be met. And the most important one of those is that no work can be done in the state of California for compensation without a signed, itemized, written estimate. In case you're wondering why they're always shoving paper in your face, that's why. First thing, that's why. Now that includes changing your oil at Jiffy Lube. Any auto repair for compensation, which means, you know, if they give you oranges, that's compensation. Fixing people's car in your driveway for compensation is illegal.
But that's some kind of a consumer protection law, right?
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing about that. Let's work this out. You know, compensation, like I said, could be oranges, you know, could be whatever. So what stopped me from working on cars in my driveway is I once did a raft, like 2 pages worth of stuff for this person. And you know, I bought all these parts assuming that I would get paid and reimbursed for them. And at the end of the repair job, they just said, well, okay, give me my keys. I'm like, well, who's going to pay? You're going to pay for all this stuff, right? And they're like, no, gotta go.
That's horrible.
Because if I kept the keys, right, that's ground theft auto.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a good day because that was the last day I worked on cars in my driveway for somebody. So that was actually a good day, you know. Got me out of the driveway.
Yeah.
Anyways, so look what this says. It says no work for compensation in the state of California without a signed, itemized, written estimate. Written, can't be oral. Itemized, that means every scrap of labor and every scrap of parts must be written down in sufficient detail to where consumer can understand it. You don't have to write the prices yet, but yeah, you have to write that down. Now you say, well, yeah, but what if he's working on his car, or he or she, whatever, and they find something else is bad? Well, then they have to call you and get what's called a revised estimate, which is to say the customer must always approve any work done on this car, or they just don't have to pay for it. So yeah, it's all about consumer protection. Now people quack about flat rate now because, you know, it's not my fault I'm really good at my job, right? And if I do a diagnostic, if I charge you an hour for diagnostics and I find the problem in 5 minutes, am I ripping you off for 55 minutes? Well, I don't know. I did go to school a lot and I did spend a lot on tools. I mean, you got to pay for that somehow. What most of the shops are doing around here is they're saying, if you pay for the hour of diagnostics, we will fold that hour into the total cost of the repair, right? So if I do scan tool diagnostics on your car and I find out that you need new injectors, then the shop will just charge you for the injector job and not the diagnostic. That's what a lot of shops are doing because people were dissatisfied with, okay, so I found out one of your vacuum hoses was not attached. Is that my fault?
No.
You know, because I had to bring the car into the shop and you know, lift a hood and, you know, do all this paperwork, probably put it up on a lift. You know, it evens out in the end.
Mhm.
So the problem we're having in the industry now is that people don't have to wonder how long it takes to take a transmission out of a 2007 Honda Element anymore. You know why? Starts with a Y.
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. Yeah. So what's happening now, and the interesting thing is, the really interesting thing is that I always say for all my students, from youngest to oldest, I always say, before you bring your car in to fix it, please look up on YouTube what repair you're thinking about doing, because you're going to find tips and secrets that will astound you. And in fact, you'll be able to watch that video and answer the question, is this really a job I can do myself? You know? Because just this week, I had a student say, well, yeah, I need back brakes on my, I think it was a 2004 Sentra. I need back brakes. And everyone was talking about, oh, it's disc brakes, it's easy. I'm like, are you sure it's disc brakes? So we looked at the YouTube video, and sure enough, it's drum brakes. But there's a video right there on how to do it. Now, this guy was doing it with needle nose pliers. I'm sure Chuck is as terrified as I am about, you know, pulling springs with needle nose pliers. One time, I'm about 18 years old. I'm doing like a 65 Malibu, I think, doing the drum brake springs with needle nose pliers. And the needle nose pliers slipped off the spring, and I hit myself right under the eye, like a half-inch away from popping my eye out because I didn't use the correct tools. Yeah,
Ouch.
so when I see people using needle nose pliers to do the springs, it makes me kind of nervous. But anyways, what you'll do is you'll see how to do the job, because the simple fact of the matter is I don't work on enough cars.
Mom, quiet. Sorry.
I don't work on enough cars often enough to know certain specifics about this car. I mean, I've probably never done the brake job on a 1999 Sentra. So I've done thousands of brake jobs, that's for sure. But rather than depending on me knowing everything instinctively, which is a bad way to bet, make sure you go to YouTube first and see if you can figure out how this job gets done. Because, like, for instance, I mean, I got a bunch of 16-year-olds that are doing some pretty hardcore stuff simply because they have access to YouTube videos. That means I can go help someone else while they're pulling a transmission out of this Mustang, right? Last year, I think it was last year, it might have been the year before. Yeah, it must have been the year before, you know, when we had real school. We had a clutch job to do on a Mustang. I said, okay, this is pretty hardcore. Could you search up to see if there's any YouTube videos? They said, yeah, Chris Fix just put out one last week on this exact same car, exact same transmission. I'm like, yeah. So that's really helpful, because I got to tell you, whether you take out this piece or you leave it in makes a great deal of difference. Like, for instance, doing half shafts on different cars. I mean, on some cars you take out this bolt, on some cars you take out that bolt, and if you choose wrong, you might spend an hour coming to the realization that you got to take out this bolt, you know. So YouTube has really democratized the process of auto repair. Now, I don't have a hard time going through a 20-minute video and finding 4 or 5 significant errors, things that these people don't know. But that's why you're going to watch a couple of videos and see what people have in common, right? Stuff you can trust, you know, rely on. Now, the problem for the industry is that flat rate is found in the labor estimating guide, which tells you, for instance, let's say, remove and install what? AC compressor, 2007 element. Okay, so let's say that they give you 3.2 hours, because they've written down all this stuff. Well, 3.2 hours, what's 0.2? That would be 3 hours and 12 minutes. But let's say you went on the Snap-on truck and you found out that they had a special tool that cut that time in half. Or let's say you found out that you could just barely squeeze by, let's say you loosen the motor mount and tilt the engine a little bit, and you can get the compressor out a certain way that nobody else figured out. So now all of a sudden it only takes you 2 hours. Well, that's how you make money in this industry, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. That's for sure. I mean, you can't just tear ass eight hours a day and do it that way. You have to have the head, and you have to have the skills, and you have to have the tools. A lot of special tools. That's why, toolbox is 40 grand, whatever. So the problem is that people are going to YouTube, and the factory's going to say, let's say the factory says, okay, you have to loosen the motor mount bolt, and then you have to disconnect the power steering pump and all kinds of stuff like that, and that's why it takes 3.2 hours. Well, some guy on YouTube may have figured out a way how to do it where he can do it in an hour. And the problem is people are going back to the shop saying, yeah, this guy got it done in an hour. How come you charge me for 3? So the question is, what do we do as an industry? What's fair?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's fair. Every time I get a car coming in the stall, I'm going to the bathroom, right? Oops, doggone it. Too much, I drank too much last night. I'll be right back. I'm in there in the stall.
Yeah.
With YouTube, just like my surgeons. Like, you watch
Right.
the video before you cut me open, right? Just make sure you understand. Yeah, so that's a question in the industry right now. And a lot of shops are accommodating their rates as a result. But there's a lot of shops that are just saying, look, man, this is the flat rate manual. Sometimes it breaks in our favor, sometimes it breaks in your favor. So, but I'll tell you, if you charge them 3.2 hours and some guy in his driveway on YouTube can do it in 45 minutes, you could get some bad Yelp reviews. So in general, it's a good idea to find yourself a good shop and get in a good relationship with them and maintain the good relationship, not going all confrontational, because who needs that? It's hard enough to fix cars without having to worry about some jackass trying to ruin your life on Yelp just because he didn't like the flag you were flying in the shop.
Ruined life on Yelp is a bad karma. You cannot do this to people. It will all come back.
Yeah,
Unless they really deserve it. Unless they really, really deserve it,
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if someone treats you like crap, they're probably treating a lot of people like crap.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
for small reasons, never, of course.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I like doing the YouTube video, the YouTube thing, because I mean, if you look at these modern engine compartments, they got a million things in them, right? And it's important to know that you don't have to take this off to get to that. Or if you try to get to that, you better take this thing on the other side of the engine compartment off, because if you don't, you're just going to be struggling for hours. I mean, why reinvent the wheel with every repair? Now, if I was working, 40 hours a week for 15 years, 20 years, whatever, I'd have a different attitude towards it. But I mean, a lot of cars go through my shop, but that the majority of the repairs I do are the same repairs, like, brake jobs and, oil changes. I don't see a large variety, and I got a lot of nice diagnostic equipment now. Well, hopefully I still got it. It's been out there in a shipping container for a week. But so that's what we do. And sure enough, when I got the Corvettes and I needed to pull the trans, that's where I go. I'm going to go to the YouTube videos and I'm going to see how they did it, because I mean, it makes a great deal of difference whether I have to pull the torque tube out or not. Turned out I didn't.
Oh, it's just basically because they've already done it, so they know what things are going to come up, and they can tell you how to avoid it or whatever. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying they're experts, because like I said, there's a bunch of stuff. These people in general are not school trained technicians.
Right.
And if you're not a school trained technician, I mean, it's like you're not a school trained doctor. Okay, well, do you really know what you're doing? Or there's certain things. Well, like I said though, any more people want certifications, they don't want school. Although I'll tell you, you ain't going to graduate out of Citrus if you don't know how to fix cars.
Right.
Not going to happen. Unlike some schools I know locally
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, after they take your money, you're on your own, buddy. Pretty
Wow.
much.
Really?
Private schools, not so much, but, you know, even those are getting clamped down on, but still. You know, if you graduate out of 2 years of Citrus, you're gonna know what you're doing when it comes to cars. I'm not saying you'll be a great wrench because you probably don't have that much experience, but you'll know you'll understand cars. And people are gonna tell me all the time, oh yeah, I know this guy went to school, he didn't know what he was doing, or he didn't know how to do this, and I'm like, yeah, okay, all right, old timer, but I'll bet you within 2 weeks you're gonna do some stupid thing that if you had understood the underlying process, you never would have done. Right? It's hard to find people that didn't go to school that understand electrical. And if you don't understand electrical on a modern car,
Yeah.
I'm sure you're good at brake jobs. To a point, because I mean, look how electrical brake jobs are now. Now the modern cars have electronic parking brakes.
Isn't that where it's all headed, pretty much?
Yeah, of course. Because you can do it because it can be self-diagnostic. So the big problem with electronic parking brakes is they just asked me a question on that in the ASEs. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, they asked me, oh, it's got irregular current on one of the calipers. Like, wait, Google, save me. That was a joke.
You know what? When I went to that diagnostic network, I was tripping out on it because he was talking about how if one thing goes wrong, everything goes wrong with those cars. Like it affects everything. You know.
Diagnostic network is awesome. Plus, it's free.
Yeah.
And you get to see what the technicians are really what we're fighting at, you know, what we're fighting with.
Yep.
And yeah, that's hardcore. It's hardcore. And the best part about Diagnostic Network is all the sharpest guys are on it. So it's interesting to just see the conversations they'll have about, you know, the amperage of a fuse. And
I
it'll
saw
go
you on
for
there.
ages. Yeah.
Was there a question?
Oh, yeah. Oh my God, I got this car. I need to put it back together by 9. Please help. Yeah, that was a joke.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Everybody
Yeah.
should go on it.
Yeah, that's free. Why not?
Is it a YouTube
Yeah.
channel or a website?
No, diag.net. Diagnostic Network. And the thing is, you can get in there and you can go to podcasts, webinars, all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's a trip, and it's free. Now, I don't know. I probably wouldn't participate on every thread, and I don't. But I'll tell you, you might find something very, very interesting and useful, and it might really tune you into what's going on in this industry at the higher levels. You know,
It's
actually
complicated stuff.
yeah, hardcore, as hardcore as any industry you want, right? So it's like a lot of times people think this job is all about doing brake jobs and clutch jobs, but it's not.
It's not.
And I got to tell you, in terms of those of you who are looking for a career, what's on Diagnostic Net now is going to be issues in the heavy duty truck community 10 years from now. So if you know it now, you would be leading that whole industry for at least 10 years, because that's how far behind they are in
Wow.
terms of electronic sophistication, you know, diagnostic tools and stuff like that. Did I
You
show
really
you?
have to stay up on it, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you do it without going to school. I mean, how are you going to know voltage drop without going to school? Unless you got lucky and your dad was unless you got lucky and someone else, you know, went to school. I mean, it's kind of hard to learn the electrical code if you don't go to school. I mean, that's why the electricians union, half the time you're in school, right? Hey, speaking of which, Gabe, why don't you join the union? They're hurting for people.
I've already tried, and they told me no.
When?
About a year ago.
Hit them up again. Yeah.
And I twice I talked to one guy, then I talked to another one, and he's like, you have no certification? I'm like, no. I said, I've been working with the same company for 20 years. And he's like, dang, he's like, I really have no place to place you. And he goes, and I know you're not going to be cool with making the amount of money that I could place you in. Yeah. And I said, I'm willing to, you know, go wherever. And he's like, you know what, just, He's like, just call again in a year. And I'm like, so that kind of discouraged me because, you know, I was like, why do they keep pushing me off? You know, like I'm willing to go in there, but it seemed like they were just saying like they couldn't place me somewhere because they said, I don't want to place you somewhere where you're going to be like an apprentice if you already have like journeyman status and whatnot.
I know, but see, the problem is you have to understand, especially if you're not a certified electrician in the state of California. Well, you must be, right? Especially if you're not a certified electrician in the state of California, the union does not want to put you on any job unless you meet union standards. Now, I don't know. I mean, we don't know because you've seen a lot of different private electrical companies. I have too. And a lot of these guys have been working there 15 years. They don't know the first thing about voltage drop, you know.
Most
As a
definitely.
result, they can't meet union standards, so they would have to come in as apprentices, and they ain't gonna want to work for 22 bucks an hour.
Exactly.
You know. Now, okay, don't call them. Go down there. You know, because you don't know. Maybe they just got this huge contract for a 600 unit apartment building, and they need electricians like today.
You think it'd be better to show up in person?
Without a doubt, I wouldn't call. Calling is a waste of time. Yeah, you need to go down to the Union Hall. You know where it is? San Bernardino. And there's also one in
Orange County.
City of Commerce. Yeah, but go to the one in San Bernardino so it'll be local. You live around here, right?
Yeah, Fontana.
Yeah, IBEW's on in San Bernardino on the 215 or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my boss's son works for us also, and you know he came in, let's just say entry level, you know, and he went directly to the office, and he said that they told him that they would use him to start teaching how to bend pipe, and I'm like, what? I'm like, oh heck no! There's no way they would want to. I'm like, dude, if they want to hire you to do something like that to teach, I was like, there's no doubt in my mind that I can do much better, you know. And he's like, you should. But again, I've been with the same company for a long time, but again, of course, I always want to find ways to level up. It's part of the reason why I'm taking this class.
Good. Tell you what, do yourself a favor and get a hold of the HVAC union. I'll bet you there'd be some big interest there because HVAC is big right now. You know, and nobody in HVAC. I mean, HVAC is part of the plumbers union, but you know, modern HVAC is all electrical.
Right.
So, yeah. But like I said, go down there, man. Don't you call me on the phone? I'm gonna assume you're not that interested.
That's true.
I mean, it's like trying to apply for a job over the phone, right? So, that's what you need to understand about auto repair in the state of California. Now, let's talk about warranties. When you buy parts from the shop, they're going to get the parts at what's called jobber net, which is probably minus 30% off of retail. They're going to get it at this price and sell it at retail. So the shop is going to make money off of labor, but they're also going to make money off of parts. So you need to be real aware of that. Now, is that fair?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it works for both parties, then it's a legit transaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why it tends to be expensive to get your parts from a shop. Now, that's also why they're very resistant to you bringing in your own parts.
Exactly.
However, if I had, you know, for instance, if I wanted to change my 68 Charger from drum brakes in the front to disc brakes in the front, and I didn't know how to do the work, if I was going into the shop, I would assume that I could bring in the new spindles and the new master cylinder and just have them install it. They would probably be fine with that, depending on how busy they were. But if you want to bring in your own spark plugs, most places are not going to do that. because you know you may have dropped the box and broken one of the porcelains. They aren't going to want to warranty that. And you say, well, okay, fine, don't give me a warranty. Well, I'll tell you what, this is how people are. You can do a perfect job for 1,000 people and nobody will say a thing. But if someone thinks you ripped them off for a nickel, they will get out the phone book and call everyone on every page and tell everybody what a thief you are. Same thing's true with students. So the point I was trying to make was that most shops don't want to use parts you bring in. They will be very resistant to that because they can't control it, right? Now, most people, they go on eBay and they see these imported parts and they're like, wow, that's way cheaper. I mean, I can get disc brake rotors for $25. Well, you know, are they as good as the factory ones? Well, they might be the exact same thing, but there's no way of knowing that. I mean, usually they're not. I mean, I know GM started getting all their stuff, and they were having real problems with their motors and their rotors for the longest time because they were getting imported parts and they didn't have good quality control in terms of their parts. And the shops know that even if it's not their fault, they need to have a successful repair. Because even if it's not their fault that something went wrong, someone's going to assume, oh, it's just those mechanics trying to rip people off again. You know, and you can't really have that, especially since now we have Yelp, which makes it easier for loudmouths and jackasses to try to hurt people for some perceived slight,
Yeah.
you know, that they suffered in 7th grade or something.
Right.
I mean, it's also made it possible for people that are doing wrong to get their comeuppance, but you know, it's a mixed bag, put it that way. I mean, you can't trust everything on Yelp anymore. You can trust everything on YouTube.
Right.
But you need to understand that the shops are making money on parts. That's why a lot of shops will be accused of being parts hogs, just throw parts at stuff, right? Because this is one of the ways that they really kick up their profit margin, right? It's like you have a car that's a no start. Okay, so you get it towed into the shop and they're putting in injectors, they're putting in distributors, they're putting in, you know, throttle bodies. Yeah, all day long. Because they're making money off the parts plus the labor, but they're making money off the parts. So what they'll do is they'll say, oh, well, I'm giving you a break on labor. I only charge you for 6 hours, even though it's 12 hours with work. And you say, man, that's nice of you. Yeah, but they freaking made it all back and more on the parts.
Yeah.
So it would be nice. I mean, if you're good friends with a shop like me and Connie and Dick's, I could go in there and say, well, okay, could I do this once? And they're like, yeah, you need to understand. Well, first they said, are you punking me? But then they said, well, okay, you realize there's no warranty. But I'm like, yeah, okay, I know. At least I know them. They're not going to do a bad job just because they didn't make the money off selling parts. It was a mercy thing because I was looking at like $1,100 because this nut was loose on the starter.
That's crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the potential danger of having do-it-yourselfers or cheap shops do your work. You leave one nut loose and it's $1,100 worth of damage because what happened was when that nut was loose, the wires were loose. That's high resistance. So now the alternator's working its brains off trying to charge a battery, which it's never going to be able to charge because the resistance is so high, and it actually stripped out the belt and burned up the tensioner because the alternator was like full fielding all the time trying to so lo barato sale caro, you know what that means?
Yeah, I know.
So does that mean it was an accident, or is is there such thing as sabotaging too?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, that's right.
That does happen.
Oh, here it comes.
Doesn't
Sin confianza tiene nada. You know what that means? Without trust, you have nothing. That's why, really, trust is the fundamental piece of all quality human relations. You know,
You're right.
if you can't be trusted, then it's hard to find a use for you.
Yep.
So the thing is, yeah, is there sabotage? Yeah, and these cheap shops around here do it all the time because, you know, you bring your car in, you're like, well, for instance, you take your car to some Yantaria, they're like, well, I could make 50 bucks off of this guy, or, you know, I could wreck this car and make, you know, 600. Oh, here, I saved you. Look, this could have killed you. And yeah, they do it all the time. I'm not really impressed with the high quality shops around here, but you got to realize a lot of these shops around here, especially the more ghetto shops, and especially the guys that are working in the driveways or the alleys, there's no way they can fix these modern cars, right? If they're trying to fix a car in the last 20 years and they don't own a scan tool, run. What are they going to do? Take it to AutoZone and have that guy do a code scan on it?
Yeah, right.
I mean, so what's happening is the only way they can make money is by ripping people off. That's the only way they can make money. That's the only way they can stay in business is by screwing over other people. And I got to tell you, it makes our whole industry look bad, and they're held in nothing but contempt by our industry. And the worst part is when people get so ripped off so hard, and then they finally show up at my door. And I'm like, damn, okay, you know, and I can fix it in like an hour and a half. And this car has been at the shop for 6 weeks.
Oh gosh.
And they've already spent, you know, $1,500, $2,000 on it. And that same thing happens, you know, when you take it to a real shop, they're like, okay, well, pay us our money and we'll actually get it fixed right. See, that's the good thing about Quality Auto Service in Pomona and Connie and Dick's in Claremont. I can absolutely recommend those two shops. And I know that if they say there's something wrong with your car, there is. And the good thing about Shopware is they got pictures. It's all documented. It's all documented. In fact, you'll love this, Chuck, because what they do is they show you a picture of the voltage reading. Yeah, your alternator doesn't work. Here's the voltage reading. It's supposed to be 14.8, but it's like 13.1.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. That's awesome, you know? And what it does is it gives the consumer a lot of confidence. And, you know, now you're looking at cars that are 50 grand easy. And it's like, you want to have confidence that someone who's working on your $50,000 thing is actually A, competent, and B, legit.
Yeah.
And Diagnostic Network, the good thing about that is you can see how much work it is just to be competent. You think these guys on Hope Boulevard, I mean,
I don't think so.
do you think they're on Diagnostic Network? No. Okay, so how are they making their money?
Right.
Well, the simple fact is they assume that they're only going to see these people once. They assume that they're only going to see each customer once. So their job is to get as much money out of them as they can for the one time they see them, because they'll never come back.
Right.
How are you going to fix, you know, fuel injection without a digital without an oscilloscope? You tell me. All this stuff requires significant hardcore diagnostic equipment, and these shops don't have that. And if they had them, they wouldn't have anyone know how to use them.
So they're just guessing sometimes?
Yeah. Well, basically what they're going to do is they're going to keep throwing parts at it until you run out of money.
Dang.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
On scanners, I'm at a point now where I don't want to fork up $3,000, but I was looking at the Altel, the Maxi Check, the 908 BT.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty good one.
This one?
Is that what it is? Is that
that's the 906 BT. That's $1,200.
Yeah, but Bluetooth is almost 13.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, the one thing I don't like about this one is it's got a small screen.
right. But it does have the stethoscope and wireless.
Yeah.
A lot of good features, but it's a good beginner one, I think.
Right. Well, that's kind of hardcore for beginners, but for professional level scan tool, yeah.
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 I got one finally.
Really? What kind?
And my torque wrench. I got a torque wrench too.
There you go. See?
Yes.
Progress.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Autel Max Assist right there. 906 BT, yeah?
Bluetooth, yeah.
$1,200. So, but what this does is it means, I don't have to go to the shop to do any hardcore diagnostics. Now I can do basic low-level stuff with the Kizgi, but there's a bunch of stuff it won't do. This will actually go into the manufacturer's diagnostic stream. See, all this will do is OBD2 in terms of powertrain control module. All this will do is OBD2. And this one will also do analog brake systems, but it won't do supplemental restraints.
I'm finding that I have to go to a bigger scanner like that because you can't work on anything with that lower level one.
Right. I mean, yeah, these fall short real quick. This one will actually go into the manufacturer's diagnostic information, which is way more. I mean, this will access every computer on the car. So if you've got 12 computers, this will access all of them, which is groovy, because you may find out, for instance, when I scanned the Z06, I found that there was low voltage on the window motors or something. They worked fine, but there was low voltage on the window motors. You know what that was? That was the freaking wire on the starter.
Oh my gosh. Makes sense.
And it didn't show up in any other circuit, but I guess there's something about the window motor circuit that's like really sensitive. Now, you don't want to know what's interesting about that. How I found that was I got the code and I looked up the code on YouTube, and the only code on YouTube for a GM with that code was in Spanish. So I had to sit there and translate the whole freaking thing. But after that, I was like, wow. And it wasn't, this is the thing about going to these small parts stores like AutoZone and Pep Boys and stuff like that. It had nothing to do with the window motor, nothing to do with the window motor circuit. And you could have torn that thing apart for years and not found the problem. Because it turns out what this guy in the YouTube video found was it was dirty connections of the battery. And it ended up being a code at the window motor circuit. Now, how are you supposed to know that? How are you supposed to know that? I mean, that's what makes this a profession as opposed to skilled labor? I mean, that's the difference between professionals. Now, you got to say to yourself, okay, so why am I going to, Connie and Dick's, it's going to cost you. Quality Auto Service is going to cost you. I mean,
it's worth it though. It's worth it if you get it done right.
It's so worth it because it's always going to get fixed right the first time.
That's right.
And if there's better shops than that, they're welcome to, prove it to me. But these are two that I have personal experience with. And I got to tell you, just like we said, getting it fixed right the first time, getting it diagnosed right the first time is priceless. Priceless.
I agree.
I was on Best Buy the other day and I came across this. I wanted to show it to you. I want to know if you've ever seen this. I don't know if you can see it. It's a diagnostic little thing. Yeah.
It doesn't work. I have 4. They don't work.
I figured it's like $60 and it connects to like a smartphone app. And I was
I take that back. It only works. It works on my wife's Honda Odyssey. I couldn't get it to work on my pickup. I couldn't get it to work on my daughter's RAV4 or my son's Camry.
That's too bad, because if you had asked me, I would have told you to look at this TORQUE app. Did I do that right? No. Torque Pro apps on Google Play. This is free. This is a good program. But you need to buy a dongle from Amazon, which is like 15 bucks. Torque Pro is $5. There is a free version of this. It works on Androids and Apples. And, well, let me show you. Less talking, more showing.
That's kind of cool.
So it'll do codes. It's got gauges for all kinds of stuff. It'll do monitors.
That's neat.
And it plugs into your OBD2 port wirelessly. It's your catalytic converter, oxygen sensor voltage, vacuum boost, all kinds of stuff. Now, there's no substitute for a scan tool, but that's it. That's the
Need
worst
that 'cause
info
of the
ever. That's the
speed.
biggest letdown ever. So, well,
You know, there's all kinds of good apps for car repairs. I was checking out.
that's the one I would suggest. Amazon.com. And then I would come here and I would say OBD dongle. Okay, so you're not supposed to get the cheap one, but I wouldn't get the $100 one. Yeah. Maybe get the $20 ones. These look really expensive.
Yeah, they got
I would not get the cheap one. I've heard bad things about the cheap ones. So, like, get this one on Amazon's Choice. Not iPhone compatible. So if you got an iPhone, I guess you won't use that one. But if you get one about $20, you'll probably be fine. This isn't the kind I got, but you know, whatever I got lots of them, and it was a long time ago. But I would not get the cheap ones, but somewhere in the $20, you should be fine.
Yeah, there's a hotel there.
Bunch of weird looking stuff.
What are they reliable? Is what I'm. Or
Yeah.
it's always best to go with the good old scan tool.
Oh, it's always best to go to the scan tool by far.
Yeah.
Because I mean, looking on that little TV, the little phone screen is lame. And you know, you want to, you know, well, I'm seriously, when you're working on cars all day, you know, you get tired of looking at this. You want to, you know, but golly, it's like the difference between $10 and then it goes to like $100. Anyways, Bluetooth 4.0, I guess that's a big deal, so maybe you should look at that. I just found out this week if you buy a Garmin dash cam, they don't come with a memory card in them. You have to buy that separate.
That's kind of cheap.
Yeah, huh? So anyways, I would stay away from the $10 stuff, but if this doesn't work for iPhone, I'd get one for iPhone. I guess I could put that in my search quest.
Compression tester, blue driver.
Ah. Well, V-Peak, there's a lot of V-Peaks. Well, there's one for $27. I've got a bunch of these. $15 with a torque app. Now you're into it for $20, and you've got a scan tool that'll do codes and data. Well, let me show you.
Oh, that one's specific for year. Oh, no, it's not.
Oh, E2, 96 and later.
Yeah, that's the same.
I suppose it would do a laptop too, huh? Might be a better way. I mean, why don't you just do that with a laptop? Why don't you just buy a scan tool? See, look how happy she is. Look how happy she is driving around looking at her
What
phone.
with these Mac?
So I got a bunch of these. In fact, I got some in the shop that I need to get rid of, but that's Amazon's Choice. So you might want to, I mean, it's only got 4 stars, so you might want to look at the reviews, but yeah, I don't know if these, anyway, I don't know. I use scan tools, but if you wanted to get in the game easy and quick, that'd be a good way to do it. Because like I said before, if you go into a shop and say, you know, I don't know anything about cars, but I trust you to take, I've always depended on the kindness of strangers. You ever watch Streetcar Named Desire, right? Yeah, Stella says, oh, I've always depended on the kindness of strangers. That's because she's crazy. So it's always better to be informed. I hate to say it, but what I've learned in my many trips around the sun,
Mhm.
always better to know the truth.
Yes.
It doesn't feel better at the time sometimes, but it's always better to know the truth. So if you can go into a shop and say, you know what, I got a code, P1215. Can you, okay, what are you going to do with a code P1215? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the internet, find out what the long definition of that is. And then I'm going to hit up the internet to see if anyone else has fixed it. I'm going to go to YouTube to see if somebody else has a fix for it. I'm only going to take my car to the shop as a last resort. If I was you guys, I would only take my car to the shop as a last resort. Now you realize how many, 300,000 people a year in the United States get killed as a result of medical malpractice?
Yeah, a lot.
You know the worst place to go over this COVID crisis? You know the worst place to be is in the last 6 months? A hospital.
Right.
Right? So it's like you want to stay out of the hospital and you want to stay out of someone else's shop. Because I mean, who knows? Terrible things can happen. So before I took my car to the shop, I would do my due diligence. I'd, sit back, watch some YouTube videos, eat some corn chips, whatever. And by the time you get to the shop, you'll be like, okay, I know pretty much how long this should take. I know what's involved. And if it turns out to not be like the YouTube video, at least this guy will hear in my voice that, this guy this customer knows what they're talking about a little bit. So maybe I better be more careful about what I say and what I do. Yeah. P0456, perfect example. When you don't tighten your gas cap tight enough, you're going to get a P0456 or a P0442 as soon as it runs the EVAP monitor. Okay, so here's a good test. Get that code, take it into a shop, and see how much they charge you to fix that. Pretty soon they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you got to change the purge valve out and blah blah." Okay,
And it's just the gas cap?
Yeah, when all you have to do is tighten the gas cap. Yeah.
Wow.
You'd be surprised.
Light on.
That would be an interesting research project to find out. But you'd find out a lot about these shops. Now the question is, to get back to your original question, Gabe, is that deliberate? Are they deliberately trying to rip you off, or are they just freaking incompetent? Around here, it's hard to tell.
I'm going with the latter. It might be incompetence.
Yeah.
Probably a combination of both.
Yeah, that's true.
Because are you going to tell me that you're going to understand how the evaporative emission control system works without going to school? Now, maybe Chuck does, but Chuck's not like everybody. Chuck's got an inquisitive mind, and he's sharp, and he studies these things. But most people, they're like, okay, well, it's 5 o'clock. I'm done thinking about automotive until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. How are you going to keep up with modern technology like that?
Yeah, anymore.
You can't.
I do have to say that on the EVAP, Scanner Danner has a real good 3-part series on that.
Right?
Man, it's fantastic.
He really is. It's just Scanner Danner is kind of hardcore for beginners. But once you start getting, into the flow of things, Scanner Danner rips it up. Yeah. Scanner Danner really opened my eyes to what YouTube was capable of.
This is a YouTube guy?
Awesome.
Yeah, Scanner Danner. SCANNERDANNER. Yeah, hardcore guy. Great guy. Yeah, but don't get spoiled, because that's what real teaching looks like, and I don't want you to be disappointed.
Wait,
I mean, at least he gets to be with students, right? That was a joke. I don't know. I don't know what everyone else is doing now.
Yeah.
But this is working good for us. Now, here's the thing. Typical warranties, they're going to warranty parts and labor for 90 days. I think on Connie and Dick's, it's like a year. Might even be close to 3 years, depending on the part, because they're that confident in their technicians and the parts they sell.
That's cool.
Well, you're not going to get that kind of warranty using junk parts.
Mm-mm.
But they have a pretty exclusive clientele. I mean, they were building Corvettes for Bondurant. They used to be the hardcore Corvette tuners, builders, all that. I mean, they got all that experience in their toolbox. It's the place to, I mean, it's a great place to take your GM. Insanely great place to take your GM. I doubt there's any place better. But you know, that's the thing. If you're going to use quality parts and you're going to do quality work and you're going to have the best in diagnostic equipment, you're going to charge. You know, people, and some people are, what was it? They were doing the 68 Charger for Jim Carrey or something like that. Why would someone travel 60 miles to take their 68 Charger to Connie and Dick's? Because they know it's going to be done right and they're honest.
Yeah. It's definitely worth it if you find an honest one.
Yeah, because I mean, you know what you went through the last big repair job you went through. And I got to tell you, that's what happens. So, you know, students of mine say, oh, well, you know, there's something wrong with my car and I take it in to get it repaired and they want to charge me $3,000 for this, you know, 25-year-old vehicle. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, what jobs are they doing? And it's like, they want $3,000 for that? And just that pressure coming from me usually cuts the price down $700-800.
Yeah.
Because it's like, nah, dude, come on. You're not charging, you know, $1,500 just to take the trans out, right? So when they know someone's watching, they tend to behave better, just like we all do, I suppose.
I do like to chime in on something.
Please.
Getting back to the diagnostic where they charge you a lot of money to diagnose. My feeling is that, you know, the customer don't realize that you got a very expensive scanner to diagnose, but on the other end of that spectrum is that after that 1 year after you purchase an expensive scanner, it's usually $1,000 a year to have that subscription to get the latest updates. So
Right.
you got to factor that in on the cost.
Right.
Not for sure.
Yeah. Now, the good thing is we're probably not going to see any cars until the factory warranty runs out, which is probably going to be 3 years. So it's not like we have to be right on top of everything. But a lot of times it's cheaper just to buy a new scan tool than it is to update them. I think that's what the marketing plan is with Autel. I think that's why they make the updates expensive and the scanners cheap, because, I mean, it's just easier to buy a new scan tool. Probably the same price. Because scan tools keep getting more and more powerful and vehicles keep getting more and more systems that these scan tools have to address. So yeah, there's all these updates. Plus, you got to be taking this continuing ed, man. You got to be taking these classes. If you're in this area and you're doing electrical repair on vehicles and you're not at least going to Citrus College every once in a while to get a refresher, it's dumb. You know, either you're a freaking genius or you're really dumb. But
It's a lot more complex than I thought.
yeah, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the more you look into it, the more you're like, wow, I didn't know my mechanic needed to know that. Yeah, that's why usually you've got one guy that understands everything and the rest of the people that actually do the work. Because
Makes sense.
I mean, well, this arrangement was originally out of Mercedes, and what they did was they had a triangle with a master mechanic at the top, and then that master mechanic would have two, I guess you would call them journeymen.
Are you still? We have to evacuate.
I have to evacuate. Fire.
Sure, tell him. I mean.
Okay, we're in class, Mom, please. Just let me know. I'm ready to go.
Really?
Yeah, we're gonna get evacuated.
I thought you were saying I have to evacuate. I'm like,
Yeah, evacuate as in get away from the fire.
oh, fire. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then each journeyman would have two apprentices. Because after all, why are you paying someone $30 an hour to take wheels on and off? Or why are you paying somebody $30 an hour to do a test drive?
Right.
Right? Doesn't make sense. So the master mechanic would do all the diagnostics. The journeyman would do the relatively high-skilled stuff. And then the apprentices would basically do all the grunt work, cleaning parts and stuff like that. This man or woman is got to be making over 100 grand a year. So it doesn't make any sense to have he or her cleaning, you know, brake parts. Doesn't make any sense. That's a dumb use of resources.
For sure.
Plus, that way you only need to buy one set of tools, one set of hardcore tools. And usually this person can keep these two busy. At least that's the idea behind the Mercedes shop. And pretty much everyone is headed in this direction. That's why if you have a one-person shop, usually they're not going to be super, super sharp up here because, you know, they're too busy doing, you know, cleaning brake drums.
Wiring stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and going around, driving around, picking up parts. You know, right? Because, you know, you gotta have someone who's going to go drive and pick up the customer, you know, wash the cars, take your car to the car wash. You don't want him doing it, her, whatever. So this is the way the industry is headed. And what we're seeing now is the industry is really shaken up. It's shaken up and it's becoming more efficient and it's becoming more professional. See, this you could probably call skilled labor. This is like CNA. That's probably RN.
That's what I was thinking.
Did I tell you that I went to the surgery center and I saw that the head of surgery nurses was really young, like in her 30s. She actually came by before I had my surgery. And I said, okay, she goes, do you have any questions? I said, yeah, how did you get to be the head of surgery nurses when you're this young? And it's like, turns out she had a master's in nursing, right?
Yeah.
RN, BSN, MSN.
Right.
You're head of surgical nursing when you're like 30 something?
Pretty awesome.
Must know something.
Yep.
So it's becoming more professional, just like registered nursing is becoming much more professional. It was not a highly paid occupation when my mom
They're taking the place of physician's assistants. They can diagnose, they can prescribe drugs, everything.
Right, nurse practitioners, sure. I mean, because everybody's trying to get away from MDs. So this is the same thing that we're doing in the automotive industry. So
to me.
When you see a well organized shop, that's one of the benefits you're going to see. Probably it's run by someone who's pretty hardcore, or at least they employ someone who's really hardcore.
Yeah.
And that's good. And like I said, these are real expensive diagnostic tools. I mean, if you want to get this person outfitted correctly, they're going to, I mean, what's the scan? I mean, the scan tool for trucks is like 10, 12 grand.
Good God.
Whether you get an oscilloscope as part of that scan tool or whether you get a freestanding one, you know, there's all this other stuff you got to get. I mean, because we're reprogramming these cars all the time. We're reprogramming the computers all the time. So now we got to have pass-through and we got to have all kinds of DC battery chargers that are perfect. And you know, you got to know the techniques, right? Because if you're reprogramming a car and you open the door, it can brick like 15 computers on this car. Oops, a daisy. Okay, well, who's supposed to pay for that? That's one of the reasons auto repair is so expensive, because when you make a mistake like that, you can't tell the customer, oh, look, I just cost $2,000 worth of damage, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of opportunities. California's community college system used to be the envy of the world. It's still really good because after all, you can take a class at Citrus for what, $300 maybe a semester. Do it by the hour. It's cheap. It's like $3 an hour or whatever. And you get state-of-the-art training and state-of-the-art facilities from state-of-the-art teachers. Well, we're going back to, you know, the difference between rebuilt transmissions and used ones. Used ones, you know, it's all factory stuff. Why would you want to learn how to fix trucks from anybody that wasn't a, you know, dealership, factory school? You know, if they're good enough to be a factory school, somebody must think they're good.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, since that's what we started, this is the structure of auto repair in the state of California. And you need to understand that they're making money off parts and labor, but you have real specific and pretty powerful rights as a consumer in the state of California. Now, is it always going to go your way? No, because what happened is, since mechanics are getting paid 3.2 hours, whether they do the job right or not, if you're not careful, they're going to try to get this job done in 45 minutes, and they don't care what they break getting to it. That's true. That's why, as I say, trust is the key to everything. If you can't trust these people, they could, I mean, You don't think I know enough to break a car to where you wouldn't ever be able to figure out what was wrong with it without tearing it halfway apart? I mean, and you know, I'm not special. I'm just trustworthy.
That's awesome.
That's the key. That's the key, which is why we're the best shop in Montclair. First of all, I watched a lot of YouTube. That was a joke. But most importantly, because we have no motive to do the job wrong or to take shortcuts or to lie or to cheat or steal.
Why is that so rare? I swear. Should it
Because
be?
most people are terrible. I mean, why is it so rare in everyday life?
I know. It's just sad.
Yeah, but it's much more sustainable to tell the truth, and it's much more better for the long term.
Better for everybody.
You're
Yeah.
planning to build something legit, so you might as well do a really good job, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there are still a lot of honest people.
Right. Yeah. Small
But it's
community.
gonna last for like short term, you know, because second time the client won't come back to you if you're not gonna.
It always
Right.
does.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, but that's an old fashioned way of thinking of a small community where, you know, if I interact with this person, I want to see if we can be friends for life. I mean, that's a small town mentality,
Yeah.
as opposed to everybody's a stranger and everybody's at each other's throat, so I might as well get mine.
Yeah. No community sense. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
So that right there is the structure of auto repair in the state of California. I'll tell you though, if you go to some of these shady shops, what they'll do is with a warranty failure, what they'll do is they'll tell you, oh yeah, we'll get it back to you tomorrow. And then like, oh, well, I'm sorry, we didn't get it done. So it'll be the next day and then the next day. And then, okay, we got to keep it over the weekend, but you'll be first thing. And then, okay, a week from now, basically what they're doing is they're waiting you out because eventually they know you're going to get angry and have someone else fix that car. That's how terrible these people are. That's how we started out this class, with a young lady that got her transmission fixed off one of these places by a mountain in Mission. I'm not going to name it, but yeah, they did a transmission job, charged her like $1,600, and she was a student too. Nice young lady. She was a student too. They charged her like $1,600 and the transmission was junk. And they just pulled this stunt of, yeah, well, we got to keep it over the weekend, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, it was like 3 or 4 weeks. She had no vehicle. And I was just watching this, just like,
Yeah. That's crappy.
yeah. So, I mean, that's why I say the value, one of the great values of this class is, you know, a good car. If cars are in a good place in your life, it's going to make your whole life much better. If you're constantly having car problems, your life sucks. If you don't have anyone you can trust about cars, your life sucks, because cars play such a big role in, you know, what we do and the way we live. And hopefully they always will, because I know the central planners all want us to be on, you know, crowded commuter trains, and we saw what the you know, pandemic did with that. You know, so I like having my own little car that I can drive wherever I want.
Mm-hmm.
It's even better if it's not constantly sending information. Oh, this is where Dave is now, and this is where he was 5 minutes ago. So maybe you don't want OBD2, but you don't want OnStar if that's something that bothers you.
It's a little frightening.
Well, yeah, because you know these people are gathering this data. They're not doing it to be your friend.
Right.
But we'll see. You have certain rights, but the problem is, if you sue people, it's going to take months to get your case heard. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I run my own business, so emergency came up today, so can we reschedule? And, you know, meanwhile, it's 6 months later and you still don't have a running vehicle. Watch out for that. That's why if there's a good shop, you're probably money ahead to go to the good shop and just resolve yourself to the fact that it's going to cost you.
I think you're right.
But, you know, that's what I'll do. While we're on the subject of triangles, I'm going to show you the most important triangle in this industry. It's this big, and then we'll break. This is the triangle of auto repair, and it's something you need to understand. Fast, cheap,
I know this one.
and good. Choose any two. All you need to know right there. Just paid for itself. Because if you want it fast and cheap, it ain't going to be good. If you want it good and fast, it ain't going to be cheap. If you want it cheap and good, it ain't going to be fast. Yeah. That's true about a lot of stuff, but especially auto repair, you better get used to it. So what are we going to do, Gabe? We're going to make a lot of money so that when it comes time to fix our car, we can just hold our nose and pay the bill, right? I mean, I'm talking to the youth of Montclair, and I'm like, no, you got to make money. You got to make lots of money. You got to start thinking about money, and you got to start thinking about making a lot of money. And they're like, la-di-da, Fortnite.
That's about the size of it.
Well,
Not a video game they don't want to hear.
yeah.
Right?
And the problem is their teachers are teaching them only losers think about money.
What?
Oh, and you need to get a job that you look forward to going to every morning.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
It's like, so these kids have no chance, man, because they actually believe their teachers. So I'm like, no, you need to start thinking about making money. You need to start thinking about making a lot of money. What kind of life you want to live, blah, blah, blah. So, because you want to have a nice car, it's going to be expensive. So anyways, that's my theory about that. Questions, comments on that before we take a break? Because it's 7:43, so we're getting there. Folks, it's going to be great. We're going to get back in the shop. Chuck, have you tried your Electude account? Does this still work? No, it won't.
No, I have not tried it.
Yeah, I bet you it won't. But they just sent me a bill for Electude for this year. It's like $9,800. Just pretty much wiped out my equipment buying for this year. Came pretty close, within like $5,000. So this COVID thing,
Yeah.
that's $10,000 worth of equipment I won't be buying, anyways.
Yeah.
At least I don't have a small business that I'm watching go down in flames,
Yeah, that's
literally
terrible.
or figuratively. All right, guys, 8 o'clock. See you back here.
Okay.
Hey,
Appreciate it.
all right.
Remind me to resume recording if I forget. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Will
you,
do.
folks. See you soon. You're young. All right. So that's good. Appreciate. We missed Rudy's smile, so I reminded him. Anyways, the point I was trying to make was we have been talking about wheels and tires, and we hit that pretty. Oh my God. Oh no. Oh no. Could it be? So let's do this. We're talking about brakes.
Okay.
Unless you got some druthers.
Right, it is.
Okay. What do brakes do? They
The vehicle.
slow down or stop the vehicle. Now, the interesting thing was last time I was over at Connie and Dick's, he told me that with these electric vehicles and hybrids, the brake jobs last like 150,000 miles now because you're not using the brakes anymore because they got regenerative braking. They've got this thing. Hello, Mr. Rudolph. How are you? Rudolph. Anyway, good. That's good. Are you on fire yet? Or the fire? Yeah, that was a gender reveal party that almost lost Rudy his house.
Right.
Not quite. It was about 5 miles from us.
Well, see, that's why I don't believe in gender reveal parties. I think you should wait until the child's old enough to tell you what gender it is.
Oh.
Is he kidding? I don't know. Is he kidding? I'll never tell. Okay. With 57 to choose from, why?
Right.
And then he made a joke about multiple genders. How do you know it's a joke? That was a joke. Now, my point was that brakes are going to slow down or stop the vehicle. Now, they have this thing on electric cars and hybrids called regenerative braking. So what regenerative braking does is it uses the resistance of
Who
spinning.
the hell is sending Morse code?
What? That's Michelle's fax machine.
No.
She's getting a fax from 1991.
Yeah.
Yeah, it finally came through.
Right.
Basically what it's doing is it turns your wheel hub into an alternator. So it takes all, you know, the alternator can take like 15 horsepower to turn if it's putting out full power. Probably won't, but it could. You know, it takes power to turn the alternator. That's why we need a battery, drive belt to do it. And what they're doing is, instead of running the alternator, what they're doing is they're putting a bunch of magnets where the brake system would be, and they're actually charging the battery that way. So when you step on the brakes, it doesn't just apply the friction materials, it also basically turns your wheels into alternators. So you got 4 alternators that are charging the battery. Since they're charging the battery, you don't need to do that with your little internal combustion engine anymore. So it gives you better gas mileage, and it makes your brake materials last forever, or a long time anyway. So that's new stuff. I mean, how are you going to know how to work on a hybrid if you never go to school?
You're not.
Now, the thing is, you're probably going to be missing out on a bunch of important stuff that either makes your diagnostics impossible or really inefficient and weak. You know, for instance, there's a lot of battery cells in a hybrid car, right? And the question is, do you know how to find a bad one? Well, you look for the temperature of all the
Digital
battery cells.
multimeter.
Pardon?
Digital multimeter.
No, what you do is you look for the temperature of all the cells around it, because it's going to get really hot, and all the cells around it are going to start to warm up. So you're going to basically, this is the bad cell. Well, this cell and all 4 of these cells are going to be running higher than normal temperatures, which tells you this is the bad one. I mean, do you know, how are you going to learn that in the streets?
Exactly.
You're not, right? But, you know.
Oh, and the way regenerative braking works is it turns the motor that propels the car into a alternator, which then uses the forward motion to recharge the pack, but not quite as efficient as it is when it's pulling the power from the pack.
That's because it's going so slow.
It's not 100% regenerative.
Right. That's because it's going so slow. I mean, a typical alternator, you're going to be running at 10,000 RPM. Your engine's not going to be running at 10,000 RPM, and that's going to really kick the efficiency of it low. So, different systems. Point I was trying to make was...
And with an electric car, you can drive one pedal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially if you turn the regenerative braking up to high. Damn, I can even still see flames from here. The mountain's still orange.
Yeah, I got bad sinus infection I've had for the last couple of days. My nose won't quit running. Of course, all that cheap cocaine isn't helping. Kidding! Oh, thank God I pressed that record button.
Yeah.
That's not cocaine, it's baby laxative. That was a joke. The point I was trying... kind of sick. What kind of sicko makes jokes like that? The point I was trying to make was... So new things are happening in brakes, and as we can see, brakes are becoming much more electrical. And the reason everything's becoming much more electrical, besides the efficiency and the fact that we can do amazing stuff that we couldn't do before, is the fact that if this stuff is electrical, then we can use a computer to monitor it. And that's a big deal, because how are you going to be able to diagnose it otherwise? Well, the other ways of diagnosing this stuff means getting out there with a meter and an oscilloscope and going through it one by one. Back in the olden days, back in the OBD1 days, or like free Honda OBD1s, they would give you one code that could be any piece of the whole system. So it's like, okay, what do I do from here?
It just gives you an idea where to start looking.
Right, right. Whereas with the trouble code system, now it's so much more precise and so much more finite. It gives you, at least it gives you a much better idea of where the problem is going to be and, you know, what to do next with it.
Hey,
Right.
real quick, what would cause a cat code to be thrown?
Which one?
I don't know. My Flex threw a cat code
How do you know it's a cat code?
because it got scanned and I was told it was a catalytic converter code.
P0420 catalytic converter efficiency low?
Probably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look how many miles you got on the vehicle.
But I changed the cats.
Ah, did you get a cheap one?
I bought used ones.
So you have no idea how many miles it's got. Hey,
Let's see. Mine went out at 70,000 and the Flex I got these off of only had 20,000.
allegedly, yeah. I know, but you've put 180,000 miles on it since then, right?
Yeah, so they're probably due, huh?
Yeah, especially the way you drive. Vadim, did you catch that? I mean, even if the,
Yes, I'm totally here. Yeah, I listen
Yeah.
to everything.
I mean, I'm just saying, just if the engine's good and the transmission's good, I mean, everything gets old, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm finding is that as I get older, my body betrays me in just about every way it can think of. And the same thing's true with the car, right? That's why if the car's got over 200,000, I would be very nervous about buying it. I mean, that's why last week, I think I mentioned to you, students were looking at what, G35s or something? No, it was some Toyota. I can't remember whatever it was, but it was like $4,000 for 200,000 miles. I'm like, man, I would never buy a car. I mean, I bought my 2000 Corvette with 200,000 miles and it was groovy, but I think I got lucky on that. I mean, because there's so many ways it can go wrong. And as you get up there in years and you get up there in miles, you're just kind of asking for it. That's why I'm very reluctant to make any major investments in a vehicle that's got that many miles.
What about a, let's see, that would be a 9-year-old car with 232,000 now.
How much used cats cost?
When I bought them, they were $580 a piece.
Really?
The brand new ones were $3,000 a cat.
You listening, folks? Are you listening? That's the difference in price between new parts and used
But-
parts.
Mind you, that was what, 5 years ago?
Well, I'm sure there's a much bigger stock available of used cats. Is it legal to buy a used cat?
No, actually, it's not.
Oops. We're
But
talking about actual cats, you know, with whiskers and stuff. That's what. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Anyways, my point was, it's just a good example of the difference between being able to do the stuff in our shop and having to take your stuff to a mechanic. Like I said, that's reason number 2, not to take your stuff to a mechanic. Because after all, let's say you had a cracked air filter housing. Now, if you can get that used, you can usually get it pretty cheap. eBay's great for stuff like that. But if you have that in a shop, they're probably going to buy you a new part, and that's going to be. So that's why.
especially on a car that at the time was only 3 years old.
Or especially on a car like these Infinities where they only came out for 1 year. You know, there's not that big a stock of used parts. So that's what I would be nervous about. 230,000 miles. Well, the good thing is, let me ask you a question. Why'd you replace both cats anyway? Two
Because
cats
both
never.
cats were bad.
I don't believe that for a
They
second.
both failed at the same time.
Oh, okay. Let me tell you. Is Chuck still? Yeah, Chuck's here.
Yeah,
Hey, Chuck, if both cats fail at exactly the same time, you think that's a cat failure or a programming failure?
I think there's a failure maybe in the fuel system.
If they both fail at the exact same time?
Well, I mean, raw fuel is heating them up. Something's heating them up.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, you would pick that up. That would turn on a check engine light, you know, rich mixture or whatever. Yeah, that would be a misfire. I'll tell you, I had the 2001 Nissan truck, and it used to get P0420 catalytic converter efficiency low, and I took it into the dealer, and they just reprogram it because a lot of times they reprogram it too sensitive.
I went to the dealer first, and they're the ones that told me that the cats were bad.
Yeah, that's because
They had to be replaced.
That's because they wanted to hook you up, buddy.
Then I went to my muffler shop, and he was like, I can't get them from my seller. So I went and talked to my girl, and she found me them down in San Diego.
Kidding, of course.
Yeah.
We're talking about the cats, remember? Meow, meow.
Meow, meow. Exactly. Okay. Well, this thing right here is the engine. I'll just talk about this for a moment. This thing right here is the engine. Looks like a check engine light. Got a little fan on the front. Yeah, there we go. Here's what happens. We got the exhaust manifold right here. Son knows something about that. Got the exhaust manifold right there. And then we go into the catalytic converter. Catalyst. A catalyst is something that starts a process. Like epoxy, for instance, is a catalyst.
Except mine, one is attached to the actual header itself.
Oh, no. Really?
Yep. The
That's
one is
horrible.
attached to the header, and the other one is down from the header.
That's so lame. Don't it sounds like a great car. I should get one. All right, so it goes catalytic converter, and then it goes up to the muffler.
Hey, it's been a great car.
Sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
Muffler. The muffler is there to make it quiet. The catalytic converter is there to lower the emissions of hydrocarbons and carbon monoxide. Sometimes oxides of nitrogen. But whatever the case, here's how the system works. And it's a good example of how modern technology really makes cars way better. All right, so over here we have oxygen sensor. Now before, we used to kind of set the fuel mixture with the carburetor, and it would hardly ever be right, but every once in a while it would be right, and most of the time it would be pretty close. Well, that's not good enough for a modern car. So now what we're doing is we're going to measure the oxygen content of the exhaust coming out of the engine after the combustion process. You know, and we talked, I think in this class, didn't we talk about oxygen and carbon monoxide and all the byproducts of combustion? Yeah, in fact, I may have already explained this, but if so, it's a review. So let's just say this is bank one, sensor one, because every OBD2 car is going to have a sensor in front of the catalytic converter, and it's going to have a sensor after the catalytic converter. I guess this is bank one, sensor two. And this one, the PCM is going to use to determine how long it's going to keep the injectors open. It's going to actually set fuel mixture. Well, it's going to inform fuel mixture, put it that way. This one is only going to monitor the catalytic converter. And the idea is, if this signal starts looking too much like this signal, then this catalytic converter must not be doing anything. because this signal should be way different from this one, signifying that the catalytic converter is actually making a bunch of changes. So what Rudy's talking about is, he says he's got a catalytic converter code. What's happening in the PCM, powertrain control module, is that it's comparing these two signals all the time. And when this signal starts to look too much like this signal, it throws up a P0420, catalytic converter efficiency low. Now, like I said, a lot of time that's just a matter of programming. And this is why we see vehicles, this is why we see vehicles needing programming all the time. And that's why it's a big deal. And it's also why, Chuck, to tell you the truth, if I was going to get a scan tool, if you're going to do a lot of this kind of work, you might want to get a scan tool that you can do programming with. Although I'm not sure you want to get into that. You know, it's
still $2,500.
Yeah, it's got a hell of a learning curve too.
Question. It doesn't throw it continuous. It's been almost 6 or 7 months since it threw it last time.
Marvel Mystery Oil, right, Chad?
Any service bulletins from Ford?
I haven't checked.
Let's look. All right. So, incidentally, folks, you have access to Mitchell On Demand, and I just realized that I haven't sent you the particulars. So, I am going to turn the record off for a moment, because if we put this on YouTube, we got to make sure that this is okay. So we're back.
My Bank 2 sensor 1.
It's got to be doing this. If it's not doing this, then it would throw a code.
It's damn near a flat line. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, that's actually kind of cool. Let me see. Let me try something, folks. Can I go like this and just click on? Oh shoot!
If you click on the picture, you can shift over, go to who you want to zoom in on.
That's what I thought. But spotlight video, just like that. Watch. Oh, didn't work. But I had good intentions. Spotlight video. It's pin video. I don't know.
It goes minus, but it never goes positive. Bank 1, Bank 2, sensor 1.
Pin video? No. Stop video. Well. So anyways, the point was that would do it, but I can't believe 2012 with no Bank 1 oxygen sensor. Okay, so here's what you would do. Chuck, what do you think? Here's what I would do. Snap throttle and watch that signal, see if you get a signal out of it. But it sounds to me like you killed the oxygen sensor. I can't believe Chuck was right.
It gives me a signal, but it's working properly. Now it's going positive, negative, but it was just at flat 0.
Why? Because I'll bet you that's the default value. Why? Because you just started the car when it was cold?
Well, the car's not cold.
Huh.
Let me see. Engine temp on the car right now.
Plus, we would want to go in and we would want to see a freeze frame of when the catalytic converter code showed up. So what was happening with the car? Did it happen when it was just warming up, for instance?
No, I was on the freeway when it threw the code.
That won't be it then. All right. Well, let me get back to this.
Wait, I have a warm-up DTC cycle 2.
Where? What are you talking about?
Only 2 graphs can be viewed at.
Yeah. Cheat scan tool. Yep. All right, folks. So there's a whole bunch here to look at. For instance, there's a wiring diagram for that car. And we can see, can you see this? Am I sharing this correctly?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, good. Well, I wish I hadn't done that.
My ECT is 178.
engine coolant temperature 178. So
180.
it's not fully warmed up yet, but that shouldn't matter.
That is warmed up for this thing.
What thermostat you got in it? Should be a 195.
Whatever the original thermostat, I have not changed it.
Yeah, it should be a 195. Where's the little hand?
Okay, well, it's at 180, so.
Yeah, it's getting there. All right, either I'm not seeing it. Huh.
But
Or are we gonna go like
sensor 1 is reading from minus
Sorry, guys.
0.8 to 5.5. Sensor 2 is barely getting up to 4.7 down to minus 1.6.
Okay, so the next time you get a catalytic converter code, write down what the code is or take a picture of it, right? Because that's going to tell you which converter is going off too. And I'll bet you it's the one with the slow oxygen sensor. 230,000
I have to go, you guys. I have to go.
What?
I have to go. We're getting evacuated.
I'm so sorry to hear
Okay.
that, Michelle.
I know. Okay.
Yeah?
Okay, be
I'll see you guys
cool,
next week.
Michelle.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Look,
Thank you.
doggone it.
Okay. Bye. Be careful.
Chuck, where's the little hand thing?
Hmm?
There's a hand thing. The little hand thing that makes it easy. All right, so let's look. That way, as you can see, this is all the wiring for the beautiful engine, or at least much of it. And I don't see the oxygen sensors, but I'm looking pretty fast. So this is big medicine, big benefit, certainly worth the price of admission to this class. Fuel tank pressure sensor. This is the next page. Crankshaft position sensor. Well, it's probably got plenty of them. Battery junction box. Well, yeah, here's a heated oxygen sensor right here. That's right side of engine, left side of engine. You can see that they've got a ground, a signal, and 2 heaters.
2 heaters, wow.
Yeah. Well, no, not 2 heaters, 2 heater wires. Yeah, okay. 12 volts. And if you wanted, you could highlight this wire so it'd make it easier to see where you're going. If you see, Gabe, are you looking at this?
Yeah, that's cool.
Isn't it? Yeah, isn't it? I mean, this for any car, right? So why don't we do that? Actually, I'll close this up. Gabe, what kind of car you got?
I have a 03 Tahoe.
Okay. So let's go to change vehicle and go to vehicle selection. Go to 2003 Chevrolet Tahoe. Which engine?
4.8.
Oh, that makes it easy. Good. 4-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive.
Rear-wheel drive.
Rear-wheel drive. Good. Okay. So go to use this vehicle. And you'll find the most common DTCs, common symptoms, common components, disc brake pads, of course. Technical service bulletins, so you can find out if there's any recalls. There's 8 recalls. Headlights, wheel caps, fuel system, exterior lighting, left rear door upper hinge weld, wiring harness, hydro boost relief valve, seat belt modification procedures. And did you know this about your car?
No, I did not.
The best part is if you're not sure,
Cutting out, Rudy.
why did you disable my video?
Because it wasn't working. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what happened. Doggone it. I thought that was you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that, dude. Because I was trying to, I've done it before where I could click. Oh, watch this. Now, do you guys all see Rudy now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I apologize in advance. Anyways, now
But
I
if
know
you
how to do
call
it.
the dealership with your VIN number, they can tell you if any of these recalls have been done on your vehicle or what recalls are for your exact vehicle.
Right. Yep.
Okay, I'm going back to my porch.
Me too. Me too. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Reset procedures, tire information, lifting points, fluid capacities, in case you're wondering how much oil it takes or how much transmission fluid it takes. Component locations, component tests. It's actually got the factory service manual. Common specifications, DTC index. Let's go to wiring diagrams. All right, system wiring diagrams. And it's got wiring diagrams for the whole vehicle. So let's see, electronic suspension, ooh la la. Let's go to engine performance. 4.8 liter. And there is the wiring diagram for your whole car. Now, it looks like spaghetti to most people, so this is the fuel injectors right here. 8-cylinder, and I say, well, I want to look at that red wire, so it's going to allow me to highlight just that wire, and I can see where it goes back to the computer. And move this thing over like that.
And this website is only released to what? To mechanics or?
Paying subscribers, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yep. And since you're in this class, you have access to it. So that's actually really groovy, insanely groovy. Made Chuck a millionaire with this place.
Wow.
And it tells you, well, this is how much refrigerant you need, or this is how much rear end gear oil you need. So it's insanely useful. You guys are going to love it. I apologize for not telling you this a long time ago. Am I on record still? Oh,
I don't think so.
Yeah, you are on record. You ended up recording again, but
okay. But I didn't give out the password.
No.
Okay, good. All right. So that's what you can do there. Pretty exciting. You know, I'll show you change vehicle one more time. Let's put a nice vehicle like a 2008 Chevrolet Corvette. 7-liter engine, of course, naturally. And we'll go ahead and use that vehicle. And you got the same setup. Technical service. Oh, I'm not sure I want to know.
Do it.
All right. Gee, wizards. I don't understand any of this stuff. Electronic muffler. Yes, we do have an electronic muffler. BLK. What's BLK?
Black.
Black, tan, red with a white stripe. That's how you read wiring diagrams. We're not going to talk about that in this class, but there's the fuse. Tan with a white stripe right there. Ah! Tan with a white stripe. Black is usually ground. No, it's just usually. So, all kinds of fun you can have.
Let's see what the bulletins are.
Oh, come on. You don't need to know that. Recalls and campaigns. There we go.
They're not.
Ah! What in the world? That's what you get for being a fancy car. Yeah. Airbag light, primary tank module flange fuel and vapor leaks. What in the world? Windshield wiper motor failure. Programming not completed. Well, I can't see the publication date because this stupid. Yeah, 14. Voltage regulator, internal low resistance short. Anyways. OEM campaigns, original equipment manufacturers. There, you happy? You're happy that you broke my heart? Quack. Anyways,
I just
folks,
gave you the reality.
David Burks is a happy guy because I know he's got all these vehicles he needs to deal with. And
I don't know how you know, but I do.
Yeah. Now you got the tools, right?
He's
Yeah.
got almost
Oh.
as many as I do.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Now you got the tools, so that's cool. So folks, do us a solid and don't give out that password freely. It actually gives you estimate, guide, quotes, maintenance.
What
You know?
password?
Yeah, exactly. So it gives you
What
the
are you talking about? What is Mitchell on Demand?
Yeah, I never heard of it. So while we're on the
What do you mean ProDemand? I have no clue. What the heck are you talking about?
topic of abusing our friends, let's look up the Ford Flex and see what maintenance is required when it's got 17 billion trillion miles. Use this vehicle. There we go. Oh, maintenance. Let's see. At 210,000 miles, replace the air cleaner element. Well, that's great.
Look up water pump. You gotta get knocked out in that one.
Wow, that's cool. All you have to do is, did you replace the spark plugs at 200,000 miles?
Nope. I did them at 190.
So let's go. Let's go to home. Ah, went too far. Let's go to One Search Plus. There we go. Let's look up water pump. I wonder if they're going to call it coolant pump or something. Water pump replace. Is that what you're asking? Water pump. Highlighted sections are required.
Front-wheel drive.
Front-wheel drive. There you go. Okay. All right. What are you looking for, Chuck?
They're getting $3,000 to replace those things.
Rudy.
It's the 3.5, right, Rudy?
Yep.
Timing chain is part of the water pump.
Yep.
Nice. Yep. Replace.
That's why you got to make sure you keep that coolant changed on a regular basis.
It's gonna blow the engine. Yeah. Water pump's a big deal. Good.
That's
Well,
why I've had the coolant flushed on this car twice already.
Speaking of stuff that we haven't been able to do yet, yeah, I mean, this freaking Electude has killed our budget for this year. But, you know, this is all machinery that we were supposed to be buying this year. The coolant flush and the air conditioning. So anyways, that's the exciting tale of that. And, you know, even if you want to look up your car and see if there's any recalls, or if you want to look up your car and see how much oil it takes or anything like that, or what kind of oil filter it takes, it's in here. This is one of those things where it's going to take a little bit of digging to find what you want, but you'll get used to it. You'll get good at it. I mean, you just got to spend some time with it. It's like just think of it as Fortnite, and you'll master it. You'll get to level 86 in no time. All right. See, look how happy he is. Look how happy he is.
I didn't know about Fortnite and all that.
Because
I don't even play that. I don't know nothing about that.
I bet you don't.
I definitely don't.
I'll bet you don't, Skylord. Yeah, because I'm surrounded by little children that don't like to do their homework, so they got to find something to do. All right, so really, P0420, catalytic converter efficiency low. The problem is, could be the catalytic converter, could be the sensors, could be a loose wire, could be a bunch of things, and that's what makes this field challenging. So I think that technicians are going to get paid a lot more in the future, just because the cars are getting much more valuable, and also it's hard to figure out. I mean, the people that do brakes and tires probably aren't going to get paid more, but the people that do diagnostics are. Because, I mean, what takes a higher skill level, doing this or doing x-rays? This, by far. So that's just the future. Well, we started talking about brakes, and we got all the way to regenerative braking, and that was as far as we went. So for next time, let me look in the book. Whatever chapter brakes is.
181, chapter 15.
Chapter 15. Read that so we can get through brakes quickly so I don't have to go over the basics. And that would be good because as you can see, you know, we're in the 8th week. We're almost halfway through. No, we're in the 7th week, which means we're past halfway to halfway. How are you going to say it? We're 3 weeks away from being halfway through the semester. So as you can see, time is a precious commodity here. Again, I apologize that I didn't get you the ProDemand a long time ago, but now you can realize how much I love you and how much I appreciate you being here because that's big medicine. That's big medicine. Made Chuck a millionaire. What you don't realize is that Chuck is actually broadcasting from his mansion high atop the Claremont Hills.
I can see the fire coming.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what you get for living on the hills. Yeah, Chuck lives next to Snoop Dogg. He doesn't tell many people, but did I tell you one of my students' father actually is in charge of Snoop Dogg's cars, builds cars for Snoop Dogg?
Oh.
I just found this out like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, really? Why was I not told this? Yeah. Is there a syllabus you can follow? Yeah, isn't it on Canvas? Yeah, isn't it on Canvas? Now, in terms of the topics we do, not so much, because what I try to do is I try to talk about topics that people are having issues with, because it makes it much more, well, it makes it much more lively, but that's not the important part. It makes it much more vivid, I guess is the word. Because when people, I mean, that's why we went into this thing with Rudy. It started out as a digression, but then it turned into a bunch of valuable lessons. So we've got the whole car to do. I try to base the class on student problems because I think that gives us a much better insight into the actual automotive repair process, because this is, after all, a vocational class, a fundamentals vocational class. So we are supposed to be preparing people for the exciting world of automotive work. But what it does is it makes it so people understand that this is problem-based rather than just a theory class, because it's really not a theory class. This is we teach theory so that we can actually do the job. But right now we're in distance learning, so we're stuck doing the theory until, what did the head of public health for LA County say? Until after the election? Oops, did I say that twice? Yeah, you did. So there is a syllabus. I believe it's on Canvas. Let me know if it's not, but it's not going to go step by step through the course material, because one of the problems that's affecting us in terms of course material is, you know, I like to be able to show you stuff. Problem is, when I'm at my house, it's hard to show you a bunch of stuff. So I'm reordering the curriculum such that we can talk about stuff that that is easier to show you the real thing. So by now, you should have the first couple of chapters read, I believe, in auto upkeep. You should have the tools covered, and you should start on the brakes. You should have the wheels and tires done, and we should start on the brakes so that we can kind of, I don't want to say rush through it, but we can make good time through it. And that should be on Canvas. I don't know. I'll have to check. To tell you the truth, I was in a big fog for the last 8 weeks, so I'm just crawling out of it right now. So I'll check, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know. Can I send the password, please? Joel, you already got it, right? Because, yeah, let me know if you don't already have it. I guess you could send me an email. You know my email, david.rowcliffe@cjuhsd.net. You should know it. Yeah, good. That's how you get a hold of me.
Now, anybody on the YouTube now has David Rowcliffe's email address.
Yeah, quack. Yeah, do that. Now, I'm going to try to put these videos on YouTube, but like I said, the district may not let me. So let me check on that. Certainly, they would be very worthwhile to watch again or watch period. I just got to be careful because I start talking about the shops and people I know, and that gets into potential liability issues as a district representative. So I don't know. I'll check into it though. Anyway, appreciate you guys being here. It's always a great time. Let's hope things go well for Michelle. That's a scary place to be, that's for sure. And
That's for sure.
yeah, well, you know, dealing with your parents when you're old, lots of kids just move away so they don't have to deal with it. Unfortunately, when you take care of your parents when they're old, because they took care of you when they were young, and it's not pleasant and it's not fun, but
Be done.
life ain't fun. Life ain't lollipops and Disneyland. You know, we have certain obligations and duties, right? I don't know. Maybe that's old fashioned. Again, I mean, that's old fashioned talk that, you know, sounds crazy to most people, but that's how I am. That's how I try to be. Harder than it looks. Anyway, folks, I sure appreciate you being here. Have a great week. Anything I can do, you know my email address. And I will see you Thursday. And we're almost out of September, right? I mean, time's flying by. I apologize for any foggy and fuzzy over the last 8 weeks, but I'm fine. I'm feeling better now, so that's good. I'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Night.